Good evening, goyles and ghouls. Goyle's a thing? It's the scariest time of the year, October, and you know what that means. It's time to break down some of the best and worst scary movies that came out in 2025, and boy have there been some fantastic entries and some complete and utter slop. I know what you're thinking, that maybe it's just a bad time to be watching scary movies at all because the actual world is quite terrifying. Scary movies can do a lot of things that other movies don't. I mean, while they're elevating your heart rate and making you feel some emotions that you might not want to feel for prolonged periods of time, they can also provide amazing social commentaries, and some of the entries in this list today will be doing just that. I'm also going to take a look at the complete and utter shit that's out there, because there's also been some terrible films, and most of the ones that are in this entry are not movies that I would normally watch because I think they're going to be bad. They're movies that were supposed to be either decent, okay, or actually are supposed to be amazing, and I just realized, what in the world was everyone thinking? So pull out your popcorn, grab that candy corn, or whatever treats you enjoy, so you can sit back and enjoy this list of both the worst and the best scary films of 2025. The first on the list is The Astronaut, written and directed by Jess Varley. Science fiction film starring Kate Mara, Lawrence Fishburne, and Gabriel Luna. On paper, this movie actually looked like it was going to be pretty interesting, kind of a quasi-original idea. Someone returns from outer space, and then when they arrive home, they're put into forced quarantine. And as the story goes along, you start to realize that they may have supernatural powers. There's enough stuff working for it, decent actors, kind of an intriguing plot, and I mean, while it is kind of a bottle episode and that most of it takes place in a single setting, there's still enough there that actually gets you gripped in at the very start of the film and gets you maybe a little bit excited to see where it goes. And unfortunately, where it goes is directly in the toilet. Because this movie really doesn't do anything in terms of offering you some incredible new ideas or some innovative concepts. At the end of the day, it's just a series of really bad jump scares, one after the other, and they're so predictable. It'll essentially be your typical, okay, everything's getting quiet now, it's really dark, it's gonna get scary, is this a dream, is it not a dream, is it real, is it not real, and then, what? Right afterwards, Lawrence Fishburne shows up to be like, hey, by the way, there's actually more than meets the eye. Yeah, I know. I just came up with that line for this video. There's a twist in the end, and maybe it worked for a lot of you, but for me, it really did nothing. I was so checked out by that point. It really took a lot to get to the ending of this film, which is just not a good sign. So honestly, all in, I'm going to give this one a 5 out of 10, but it's closer to a 4 than a 6. Next up is VHS Halloween, the next entry in the very popular VHS anthology series. Probably, I think, the longest running found footage anthology series ever. So, I mean, good for them. I know a lot of people think found footage films are completely, like, done to death and there's nothing new that the genre can offer. And then every single year, there seems to be a new VHS anthology that comes out that, like, proves that theory wrong. There's still a lot of scares, not just jump scares, but actual scares to be had in found footage horror, and VHS usually is a great collection of international filmmakers, and I love the concept because it really gives first-time directors a chance to actually, you know, be in a mainstream horror film, get onto Shudder, and get some resume material, not to mention get experimental. Some of the coolest things about VHS is the fact that they actually hire international directors, and sometimes a lot of women, giving them opportunities to make movies when they normally wouldn't have it. All that being said, with any anthology, there's going to be some absolutely amazing sequences, and then there's going to be some just terrible ones. And while VHS Halloween does have some great jump scares and does have some really cool and creepy moments, and not to mention a ton of gore if that's your thing, but there was one particular sequence of all of them that I had to single out and talk about today.
Oh my God, you need to stop worrying about his feelings and put yourself first.
Shh. He's gonna hear you, and you better delete this footage.
Fun Size, the third entry in VHS Halloween, is just one of the worst things I've ever seen in the totality of the entire series. And I'm not trying to be mean to Chris Kelly, the writer and director, because it seems like Chris Kelly was trying out something new. The guy's actually really known for Adult Swim content, making Too Many Cooks, and other things that are genuinely in a lot of ways creepy and sometimes off-putting, so it's not as if he doesn't have the chops, but I think this was an idea that seemed really, really interesting, maybe while you were really high high. The story centers around a group of friends who are way too old to be trick-or-treating, but nonetheless are going house to house to try and get some candy, and they stumble upon the fabled empty bowl. Anyone who's trick-or-treated before knows this trope. You sometimes show up at a house where the people who live there aren't there, or they're too lazy to want to interact with children all night, so they leave out a giant bowl of candy for people to take one. Just one. You're not supposed to steal any. You're only supposed to take one. When they arrive at the bowl of candy, they're actually surprised to find that they don't recognize a single brand. And this is probably the peak of this entire sequence, because it's actually pretty interesting to see this bowl of candy you come across where you're just like, where is this all from? And I genuinely thought, oh, this could go somewhere that I haven't seen before, so I was pretty damn excited.
Have you ever seen any of this candy before?
No. It looks like a dong.
And then it goes to shit. Immediately while reaching for the candy, they start getting sucked into the bowl to be pulled into, you guessed it, a candy factory of terror. Because in this candy factory, you are the candy. Yes, that's right. They're just taking people and turning them into candy.
The key's in there, so hurry up and unwrap one! Stop yelling at me! That's my fucking boyfriend!
I got nothing wrong with suspending disbelief. I got nothing wrong with super silly premises, and I have absolutely nothing wrong with black comedy. In fact, it's one of my favorite genres. But in this case, nothing works. In large part due to the fact that the cast are just so terrible.
We didn't take more than one! You killed the guy who took more than one!
Calm down! Okay, we're going to get through this.
And then, of course, there's the monster of the story, which I can only describe as like a candy mascot. That's it. It's like a mascot that you would see on the box of chocolates or something like that, who's, I guess, terrorizing them by just being there. I mean, nothing's really explained. It's a very short story, so there's not a lot of time to, you know, flesh out this incredibly in-depth idea. I mean, if you find the idea of somehow getting sucked into a bowl of candy and then some of your friends being turned into candy while you are then pursued by candy, terrifying, then this one's for you. Like, the person who wrote this, again, was just in the middle of eating a lot of candy and then just thought, candy? What? Candy? What if there was candy and you were chased by candy? Well, you turned into candy and then the candy also killed you. Candy.
It's not human! It's not human!
3 out of 10. Next on the list is public domain IPs. Now, I want to start by saying, public domain is fucking awesome. The very idea that there's a time limit where Disney can hold on to intellectual property rights so that other people can actually have a creative spin on something that was cherished or beloved or something everyone knows is fantastic. And usually after a little bit of time, you know, the golden year seems to just increase every single year that Mickey Mouse stays out of copyright. Until now, you have the ability to take something that was once cherished and then recreate it. Well, you can certainly use Steamboat Willie, but you can't use Mickey Mouse, even though the character is called Mickey Mouse, but no one really wants to chance it too much because they don't want to get sued by Disney. So every year, a bunch of new IPs get unlocked, whether that be Winnie the Pooh, or Popeyes, or Mickey the Mouse. The first entries that usually take a stab at trying to make movies out of those franchises is horror. And they're just so goddamn bad. This year we got both Popeye's Revenge and Mouse of Horror, and in both cases all they really seem to want to do is a paint-by-number slasher film where the monster happens to be Popeye or Mickey Mouse.
It's Popeye. He's back.
And that's about it. There's not really any world building, there's not like a very clever twist on a beloved franchise, there's not like taking the lore or the story from the originals and then flipping them on their head or trying to re-envision them in a way that is truly terrifying, which you could do. Instead, wouldn't it be really scary if Popeye was trying to kill you and like the spinach was like PCP and gave him the powers to murder you and your friends? Or what if Mickey Mouse was trying to kill you and then was chasing you and your friends around and kind of that's it? Again, there's no personality or character here. Like, you could actually play on the tropes of Mickey Mouse, his character, his creepy little laugh. Like, imagine making that sinister, or even kind of Jokerify, the very beloved cartoon character that people grew up with. I mean, flipping that on its head doesn't seem like the most complex idea, but it seems a lot more like they were just like, what if he was Michael Myers, just a really bad one? Like, not the kind of one that's kind of haunting and foreboding and seems like some juggernaut that's impossible to take down. What if it was just a killer in a Mickey Mouse mask. I'm not saying that there can't be good horror films that, you know, play off of beloved franchises or properties. In fact, one of the top 3 best ones coming up later in the film is going to be just that. But for these ones here, they're just utter and complete trash. Low budget, let's film it, get it out there before anyone realizes that there's going to be a surplus of these kind of things. We got to be the first one on the block to get it out, and as a result, it's trash. So 2 out of 10 in both cases. Do not watch.
That's good.
So I want to start with some honorable mentions before I get to the top 3 best scary movies of 2025, and I'm starting this one with 28 Years Later.
No discharge in the war. Don't look at what's in front of you. Boost, 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 boost. Moving up and down again.
28 Years Later is the 3rd in the series of zombie movies by Danny Boyle, the man who basically reinvented the zombie genre, made fast zombies a thing, you know, the scary ones that run at you.
Zombie attack!
I thought for a long time Danny Boyle is a very skilled director who has some of the greatest films of all time in his canon, and he's actually one of those people who's really good at occasionally doing a huge budget blockbuster film and then returning to doing something very indie that actually kind of breaks genres or uses technology in an interesting way, as was the case with 28 Days Later. One of the first feature films that was filmed on digital cameras, not to mention I would say it was one of the most transformative figures in creating zombie movies since George Romero, because with 28 Days Later we got finally the fast running at you scary zombies instead of the very slow moving hordes. You've got George Romero, which is kind of like the slow-moving zombies. Then you've got like World War Z, which is like the zombies that pile up on each other and also praise Israel. But lucky with 28 Years Later, it actually is a return to form, with both being concerned about world building and offering an incredible cinematic experience. This film isn't perfect. I think the first half of the film is probably the best, especially the dynamic between a father and son and surviving in this really interesting scenario where there happens to be a little island, or at least it becomes an island, when the water in the ocean rises to a certain level, which is actually based on a real historical location in the Scottish Highlands, which was used in previous battles in order to prevent people from entering a certain area based on the time of day, because only a small strip of land was able to allow you to walk into that area. And in this case, they use it really well to keep zombies out, while at the same time only allowing people based on the rules and conduct they have to go hunting.
Slow. Not fast. Doesn't mean they aren't dangerous.
It seems to be like a communist or communal society in which people can decide which tasks or jobs they're best suited for, while at the same time everyone is kind of working together because of limited resources and the real world danger that obviously having all these zombies on land present to all of them. The second half of the film is centered around a son trying to save his mother's life, at great risk to both of them. And while this is also quite terrifying and interesting in its own right, it then morphs into a very bizarre third act, which I think has divided a lot of people. Now, this happens to be part 1 of part 2 film, so it's hard to really review this one without having seen the next one, because it's not out at the time of me recording this, but I found it a little bit jarring to have the Ralph Fiennes character come in at the very end and start doing this entire moral philosophy about existentialism, death, our relationship to it, which, don't get me wrong, is interesting and his acting is superb, but it does end on a cliffhanger because it is ultimately, yes, part 1 of a part 2 series. So it's kind of like reviewing Kill Bill 1 without having seen Kill Bill 2, and then once you have them both together, it's easier to paint a picture. But I will say, for what I saw, 28 Years Later is very entertaining, and my biggest gripe with it was just the endless amount of kind of special effects, music video style editing, which I just don't find that frightening. It's more distracting than anything. The film could be scary on its own merits, which at times it really is, but nonetheless, great return to form. It's awesome to see Danny Boyle back at the helm, and I'm certainly giving this one at least a 7 out of 10, but I think it might be closer to an 8. Next in the honorable mentions is Alien Earth, a TV series on Hulu, and it's pretty fantastic. If you're a fan of any of the Alien movies, this perfectly captures the magic, the aesthetics, and basically the haunting space horror of the original. For the first time, it takes place half on Earth, which is actually kind of refreshing, because oftentimes Earth is just this distant thing that you're always hoping that the heroes can get back to, but they can never truly make it because of the isolation of space, the distance, and not to mention the fact that, well, they're being pursued and killed by aliens. This one actually goes a little bit more cerebral with its concepts. What if you could actually transfer consciousness from a human to a cyborg or robot or android?
What's on that ship?
We can do it. We're fast, we're strong, we don't break.
It does lean a little way too heavy into the Peter Pan, both mythology, storyline, and metaphor. The performances are fantastic. Timothy Olyphant, as always, is just an absolute pleasure to watch. You get a really good Elon Musk character in the form of Samuel Blenkin, who does a really good job of both being unbelievably arrogant, but also secretly insecure. Sydney Chandler does a great job as the lead of the show. Alex Lawther is absolutely and completely terrible. I'm sorry, it was so distracting to see this guy in the show. I don't think he's a bad actor, and I've seen him decently in other things, so I don't know what was going on there, but I don't know why he seems as if he was just on mute.
Medic 10 to the right!
While the rest of the characters were doing everything they could to really bring life to the performances and the world building, he just seemed as if he was in the wrong show. Like I don't know. Did he show up to set one day and he's like, what movie am I in?
Gretchen, you want to turn that off?
If it's hurting you, we should make it stop.
The standout without question is Babu Sisay, who plays Kumi Moro. He plays a cyborg whose loyalties you don't know exactly where they lie, but at the same time is equal parts terrifying and also endearing. It's such a good juxtaposition against Timothy's character. When the two of them are on screen, it's absolute fire, wondering who exactly is going to attack first, and it sets up one of the better rivalries in television. Now, I know a lot of the reviews of this were mixed because a lot of people felt that it actually borrowed too much from the source material, that some episodes feel like they're just a direct recreation of Alien, and that is partially true. I mean, it is based on the movie Alien, so I'm not shocked that it felt a lot at times like Alien. I gotta say, the new monsters are really, really cool and interesting. I still am haunted by the image of that bulbicide staring at me from across the corner, wondering when the eye is gonna jump out and, you know, possess something else. Really good series, well paced, well acted, interesting. If you're a fan of Alien, I think you'll absolutely love it. And I'm giving this one a 6 out of 10.
Manifest. Chief of Security, sole survivor, cyborg. Lost a lot of friends, did you?
I don't have friends.
Everybody needs friends.
And finally, what would the honorable mentions be without The Monkey? Osgood Perkins' latest follow-up to Longlegs. This movie is an absolute blast. I completely recommend watching it with a group of friends. It's not at all that scary. It's one of those black comedies that's like, you know, it's obviously going to fall into the horror genre because of how gory it is. Just some strange supernatural force that causes all these people to die, usually in very complex Rube Goldberg machine ways, and oftentimes absolutely hilariously. I mean, I can't remember the last time death was so funny. The movie and the pacing in and of themselves would have been really silly if this movie took itself seriously, which thankfully it doesn't. This movie feels like a Sam Raimi film that was not directed or written by Sam Raimi.
Oh, fuck. Today we're here with Annie Wilkes.
It's got all the elements from endearing characters to hilarious what the fuck scenes to a lot of really cool shots that are actually quite visually entertaining. I don't know if a lot of other directors besides Osgood Perkins could have done this one, and he's also kind of a funny character in the movie as well.
Aunt Ida and your Uncle Chip never wanted kids. No. Always just kind of preferred a life where you sit down and you don't stand up again until you want to. Also, we're swingers, but oh well.
Many people were probably wondering why the monkey isn't that typical like cymbals clashing monkey that you're probably aware of. Like I remember growing up and I think my dad had one of those, and they are as terrifying in person as they are in, like, you know, the movies and stuff like that. But it turns out, once again, because we were talking about IPs earlier, Disney might actually own the copyright to that because of Toy Story. So they were worried about that and instead made the monkey similar, but I guess just a lot more gigantic. And now instead of the cymbals, he plays a drum. So that's how they kind of avoided the whole copyright thing, which again, sure. I mean, it works. It's just an obnoxiously large monkey toy in the movie that is terrorizing everybody. The monkey terrorizes a family, primarily led by two twin brothers, played by Theo James, who does an excellent job here. They make a lot of jokes about how pretty he is in the film, which, yeah, obviously, but like it still works. And again, it's probably one of the funniest horror films to come out this year. And if you found that Longlegs was way too scary for you, this one is a really easy watch. It is an absolute blast to watch with friends and just to laugh at what is going on and just to enjoy the adventure from start to finish. And I'm giving this one a 6 out of 10. And now it's time for the top 3. Coming in at number 3, we have The Ugly Stepsister, which honestly is a tour de force for a first-time director. I couldn't believe that the woman who made this is her first film. It's actually pretty astonishing because everything about this movie feels like it was made by an auteur who's been making movies for a really long time. It is made with such confidence and stylistically has so much inspiration. From everything from David Cronenberg to Stanley Kubrick to David Lynch playing out here in what is one of the best modern interpretations of a fairy tale I've ever seen. It's a Norwegian film directed and written by Emily Blichfeld that basically retells the story of Cinderella. Unlike other interpretations, it doesn't center around Cinderella herself, but one of her evil sisters, Elvira. Although you get to really determine who is evil in this film, because I think the real villain here is the impossible beauty standards we place upon ourselves, especially for women who in this period of time seem to be valued entirely based on their looks. But luckily, everything's changed since then. There's times when it's filmed and scored just like an old fairy tale film that feels a little bit more like The Princess Bride or something like that, and then it switches into some of the most revolting body horror I have ever seen in my entire life. If you thought The Substance was bad, you have not seen anything yet. In large part due to the fact that what is taking place actually has more basis in reality, such as early plastic surgery methods being absolutely barbaric, and the amount of pain that the main character is willing to go through to try and look more beautiful. At one point, she's literally ingesting worms so that they can eat the food that she eats, and she doesn't have to worry about becoming skinny as a result of her habits of eating highly fatty foods. It's also surprisingly funny, mixing in a lot of comedy with the rest of the film, and also shockingly pornographic, which I was not expecting in the film, but seems to work really well. If you're someone who's very squeamish about seeing body horror and extra squeamish about seeing X-rated scenes with full-blown erections and stuff like that, then yeah, maybe this one's not for you. But if you're willing to tolerate a certain degree of that, or maybe even look away from the screen when there are people who are literally vomiting up worms or having their nose broken with chisels and hammers, then you'll be rewarded with an incredible story which really is the darkest version of this retelling that I've ever seen. It's captivating from start to finish, it's wonderfully acted and directed, the editing and the pacing are fantastic, not to mention the score works so well. There's times when there's even some mild electronic music that's peppered into an old fantasy film, but it just fits. I can't really say why or how, but this is definitely worth checking out, and anything that this director makes going forward I'm excited for, because when you start out of the gates this strongly, you can only go up from here. While I wouldn't recommend picking up popcorn for this movie because it's pretty revolting, I'd still highly recommend it, and I'm giving this one a 7.5 out of 10. That's right, I can do halves.
Lost my mind.
Coming in at number 2 is Weapons, which if it wasn't for the number 1 pick, I think would have stealed one of the best movies of the year, and definitely the best scary movie of the year. It was such a wonderful surprise. This is one of those movies that you want to go into watching not knowing anything about the film. So please, if you haven't, skip ahead right now to number 1, because this is one of those things where you have to go in blind. I had only seen a trailer to the film before watching it, not really knowing what the actual plot was going to be about, and the trailer is really good in hiding basically what the core tenets of this film is going to be about. Is it a murder mystery? Is it a detective story? Does it have real monsters or ghosts or witches, or is it based in reality? This is one of those really well-woven films that tells the same story multiple times just through the eyes or POV of different characters, and every single time you see it from a different perspective, you start to learn more facts about what is going on. This movie was directed, written, produced, and co-scored by Zach Crager, which you might know from The Whitest Kids You Know, that old sketch comedy troupe, which I'm honestly blown away how talented he turned out to be. I enjoyed The Whitest Kids You Know just for, you know, the comedy of it all. I didn't think this guy was going to come out to be one of the best scary movie directors of the modern era, but holy hell is this ever a tour de force. It's honestly so well paced in that it continuously makes you interested in the story, even though it goes in wild and strange tangents. And one of the best things about it is how goddamn funny it is, because it's actually really disarming, and that there are some scenes in which you might be terrified or just cringing because you're worried about the worst, and then at the next second you will burst out laughing at how funny something became. It does have a lot of jump scares, and if you're not a fan of those, there are a couple moments that are definitely going to have to make you look away. But as the movie goes on, you don't even get that opportunity, because parts of it become so funny that you don't want to look away. And I gotta say, this movie has probably the most satisfying ending of any film I had seen this year.
Oh, no, it's not serious. Nothing terminal. It's just a touch of consumption.
A touch of consumption?
Yeah.
You know what? I'm embarrassed to say, I guess I don't really know what that means. I thought it was something settlers got on the Oregon Trail.
I happen to be one of the people who went to go see this in theaters, and there's certain shots of the movie that are just so creepy that people were gasping. There's one particular one, and this isn't a spoiler for anything, where a door opens in a house and then a really creepy character comes out and walks towards the camera while another person's sitting inside of a car, and all of a sudden that person walks right up to the window and you're terrified, and everyone was like, and then they walk away, and then everyone's like, oh, thank God, you get that moment of relief. And then you hear the car door open, and just that little click, that sound effect, that, you know, as the car door opens and that person's now sitting in the back, again, had everyone in the theater scream out loud. I know for a lot of people this one might be too scary, as in it's going to pass the bar of what your tolerance might be, but it honestly is a blast. If you're really terrified of scary movies, watch it with a big group of people, because it's really, really fun to try and solve the mystery together and figure out what exactly is going on. Once you piece everything together, again, it's one of those things where you could be upset by the fact that it goes in one direction or another, but it becomes very, very satisfying. It's probably one of the most well-written and well-crafted films of the year. It came out as an absolute surprise, being that like no one was really expecting to know much about this movie or whether it was going to be good, and then all of a sudden everyone was talking about it, and for very good reason. It is wildly entertaining. I can't say enough good things about it. Go see Weapons, please. 9 out of 10.
Rewatching. Rewatching. Rewatching.
And then in number 1, the most coveted spot in all YouTube video essay lists, the scariest movie of 2025, or the best scary movie of 2025. Either way, my number 1 pick, without question, incredible, epic, vampire, action, horror film, Sinners is just an absolute wonder to behold. Taking place in 1932 in Mississippi, this movie weaves so many incredible elements into an absolute tour de force that became a cultural phenomenon, despite the fact that the media was really obsessed with downplaying how successful it was over and over and over until they just couldn't. I wonder why that is. You get not 1, but 2 Michael B. Jordans, which of course is just an absolute treat. He plays a pair of twins in this film, probably the best soundtrack of any movie that came out this year. And I hope the original score, not to mention the songs that were in this movie, win some Academy Awards. If not, they completely sweep. But Sinners is something that's really special. We've all seen vampire movies before, and a lot of people actually started comparing this from Dusk Till Dawn, which is just kind of weird because they're really totally different films for totally different reasons. But I think one of the best parts about Sinners is the fact that horror films, unlike a lot of other genres, can do something very special, which is that they can often have profound social commentary woven into the scariness of the movie, and this movie does just that. We're dealing with a lot of really, really difficult themes here. Everything from Jim Crow to racism, the Ku Klux Klan lynching, some of the worst parts and darkest moments in American history. Unlike a lot of films that actually deal with those topics, you don't go through this movie feeling sad the entire time or depressed. It's actually more of a celebration and connectivity of life, which is a very odd thing to get from a vampire movie, again, dealing with such extreme racism and themes. This is a movie that when it first came out, I really wanted to see it, and then as time went on, I had missed the first week and then the second week, and I luckily caught it on the third, and the theaters were still completely packed full of people who were cheering throughout this entire picture, and for really good reason. It is so satisfying at times. From the incredible songs, to the performances, to the action sequences itself, to the profound sorrow and beauty that is just basically in every single frame of this picture. I've been a fan of Ryan Coogler for a while. I think that he's actually really good at making very large scale, very high budget epics, and there's not a lot of people can do that. Christopher Nolan, Jordan Peele come to mind, and in this case, Ryan has kind of solidified himself as one of the bigger auteurs who is working in film and cinema, who can take a $100 to $200 to $300 million budget and actually transform it into a piece of art that is accessible by everybody.
In place of doing what we ought to do.
And what is it we supposed to be doing?
Being kind to one another.
Honestly, this is not only the best scary movie of the year, but I would say it's the best movie of the year. For whatever wild reason, if you haven't seen it already, go do it.
Thank you so much to our patrons for making this show possible. We could not fund it without you, and if you want to join, please check out patreon.com/theserfs to unlock bonus episodes, uncensored content, and all the good stuff. Thanks to Anna Loves Riley, Addercap, Bobby Lasers, Cheryl Alvarez, Comrade Junkie, Doug Caddy, Everything Important, Hegbard Salim, Multimondi, Omni, Political Papi, Preston Kroll, Quiet One 85, Riley and Anna, Roller Dragon, Cernicus, Stellar Gwyn, Sebastian Demmel, Tigwick, and Words Greenwood.